So,
It's still loading up. We're
no, I
almost.
think it's, no,
We're almost
last
live?
time we were
Uh-huh.
live.
Uh-huh. So now we're live.
Now we're live. Okay. Hello, Robert.
Hello, Christina.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
So do you want to announce our topic for tonight?
Yeah, today we're going to be talking about what is your estate planning style?
And we're going to talk about, are you a fancy estate planner? You may be a fancy estate planner and you don't know it, or you may just be kind of a laid-back, casual estate planner and you don't even know it.
I would be casual.
Yeah, you're always casual. And joining us in the background tonight is our one of our firm's furry mascot, Lenny DeStefano Lesher. So hopefully he won't do anything with the carpet that requires us to pause. But until then, we're just going to let him run around. So, Rob, we've been getting a lot of calls at our office, especially with COVID, about emergency estate planning documents, and you've been fielding a lot of those calls. What have the clients been saying?
Asking like, what is a medical power of attorney? How do I get one? How do I make sure I get the information from healthcare agencies? My dad just went into the hospital.
Yeah.
How do I communicate with his doctors? Especially since families aren't allowed up there right now.
Yeah.
So that's been a big issue that we've been getting calls from.
And I have questions from clients on, do they even need estate planning documents? And so the answer is yes if you're over 18. The answer is yes if you're married. The answer is yes if you're not married. And the answer is yes if you own property that's out of state. So, and today we actually did a power of attorney signing for a young lady who's about to go off to tech tomorrow and hop in the car. And before her parents sent her out, she came to our driveway and did powers of attorney. I think she was a little confused about why at 18 she needs powers of attorney. But we just explained to her that, at age 18, mom and dad aren't your natural guardian anymore. And if you need help making a medical decision, or if they need to talk to a doctor about you, they need the right paperwork.
So basically, the question to do you need estate planning documents is?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Unless you're under the age of 18, and then your mom and dad are supposed to make those decisions for you. So even if you've been married a very long time, we get a lot of questions. Oh, I don't need to have a will. I don't need to have a financial power of attorney. I'm married. But the answer is yes, of course you have to have those estate planning documents. So, Rob, what happens when somebody goes into the hospital and doesn't have a medical power of attorney?
Well, for the medical power of attorney, and if you don't have one, if the person's cognizant, hopefully the hospital would say, here's a temporary medical power of attorney that you can sign. That way at least you can do something. But that is just good for that particular hospital. It's not going to be good for every doctor's office or every place that you're at.
And people, that's such a good point, because people get confused. They think, oh, well, I signed a HIPAA release at my doctor's office, so now why do I need a medical power of attorney from you? We tell them, well, when you sign that HIPAA release, it's so that doctor can bill your insurance and and they need to release some private medical information. But you want a general HIPAA release so that anybody that you want can have access to that medical information. And on the HIPAA release, it lasts for 2 years after the date of death. And I know you also counsel clients about the directive to physicians and the living will. So you want to tell everybody, what does that do?
So yeah, the directive to physicians or the living will basically just says, if I have an irreversible condition or a terminal condition, what you would like. Do you want to be kept on palliative care? Do you want extreme measures made? We've had people do all sorts of addendums or additions, like, there are some people who do not want blood transfusions or things like that. So that's a place where you can put your wishes known. And something that you said that really sticks out to me is it's like a letter to your medical power of attorney.
Exactly.
I really do like when you say that, because I think that's a good way to view it.
And some families have had different experiences with end-of-life issues. And so I tell them, this paper, this thing that you're signing is a starting point. You need to go back to your family and give specifics about what you want. Do you, are you okay with maybe artificial nutrition, hydration for a very short period of time? Do you have like specific religious beliefs? So all that needs to be in writing. And I call these powers of attorney, the little black dress, just to go on our fashion, our style theme tonight, our little black dress. Everybody has to have a little black dress. What's the male equivalent to a little black dress?
Gray suit.
A gray suit. So if you're,
I guess.
if you're a dress wearer, a financial power of attorney, medical power of attorney, HIPAA release, directive to physicians, this is your gray suit. This is your little black dress that makes you feel really good. It may not feel good having to think about these decisions, but you sure will feel a whole lot more relieved after you've made some of these decisions, and your family will sure feel relieved.
And one thing that I think is people need to think about is now, especially during the pandemic, you might have different feelings about that.
Absolutely.
So it's a good time to kind of go back, if you have a director position, to check just to make sure that that's what you want is on there. It's because things can change. So.
And go back and check and make sure that the people you have listed, you still like, you're still married to.
Yeah.
You haven't had a fight with, or some type of, especially with the elections. I mean, I think a lot of people's philosophical differences are coming out maybe in a way they didn't know, and so maybe their aunt or their nephew isn't really, they're not as in tune with each other as they thought that they were.
Just make sure that the person who is going to be taking care of you knows and is going to act like you would act. I would say that's a good way to say it.
Yes. And then on that financial power of attorney, to me that is the scariest document, because when you sign that power of attorney, you're giving that person the ability to make financial decisions for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's why sometimes people don't want to sign that financial power of attorney, because they don't want to give somebody that power. But Rob, tell the audience what happens if you don't sign that financial power of attorney and then you later become incapacitated.
Oh, it's guardianship time.
Yeah. And then guardianship means a lot of money.
Yeah, 2 lawyers in the same room.
I know, that's my joke.
I got to steal it.
Lawyers in the same room. And it may not even be a contested. I mean, it may be very obvious that you need guardianship, and it may be very obvious who the guardian should be, but then it's very, very expensive. So you need to make sure that you have these documents done and that they're reviewed. And then I may have mentioned it here on Facebook Live before. On that financial power of attorney, go ahead and send it in to those financial institutions. A lot of families will confuse a beneficiary designation with a financial power of attorney, and they'll say, oh, well, I don't need to get financial power of attorney because I'm the beneficiary of my husband's retirement account. Then we have to remind them, no, the beneficiary only has the right to that account when someone dies.
Right.
And then so you're really stuck out unless you do have that financial power of attorney. Yeah,
and especially when we get into more complicated matters, we need to move things around. That's when that financial power of attorney that you have really, really helps out.
It really does. And then, of course, if you're on a second or third or fourth marriage, Lenny, our little pup, is letting us know that Max has finished his Latin homework, so sorry about that, y'all. The financial powers of attorney, they are very scary to think about who that person or persons would be. And we have a lot of people that come and see us and don't have one person to name on that financial power of attorney. And you and I have, it's kind of been a subspecialty in our office the last few years. You want to tell everyone about that?
Sure, yeah. So a lot of what we do is talk to people who, may have relatives out of state, out of country, not in the immediate vicinity of where they could act. And we help them kind of work through that, find people, do a lot of problem solving for that. And that answer for everybody's different. And it could come down to a corporate, fiduciary, or it could just be, a friend, or we even have professional, people who would come in and be that power of attorney for them.
And it's difficult to give that power up, but if you don't make these decisions now, a court will make those decisions for you. And what you don't want to have happen is a stranger now is taking care of your finances.
Right, and then all your stuff is out in the open, and it's open record, it's in the court.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're a very private person, that's like the worst thing you can think of. Go ahead and get your power of attorney done.
And we can tell you that the guardianship accountings are not very fun. You can tell me guardianship accountings are not very fun. So if you're doing guardianship, you have to report every cent to that guardianship on an annual basis. So the next thing I want to talk about is a few notes about death and property. So when someone dies, then the law will separate their assets either that have to go through probate. Kind of a typical example would be a house, or things that don't go through probate, and that would be a beneficiary designation or a payable on death, or some type of legal instrument that you signed with the bank. That doesn't have to go through probate. So let's say you don't own any real property and all your bank accounts have beneficiary designations on them, then you may not have, you may have a will when someone dies, but you may not have any probate assets. And then that kind of leads us to our next topic is, do I need a will to distribute my property, or do I need a trust to distribute my property? And I think of the will as like the KISS method of leaving your assets. To keep it simple, sweetie. I know some people use a different S, but I like simple things. I like things that are nice and easy because I have too much going on. So I like a will for people if they are working and they have children and they're busy and they do not have out-of-state property. Sometimes if you have a will and you are in Texas and you own property in, let's say, California, then oh my gosh, you might be subject to that California probate process, which unlike Texas, it's very arduous, it takes a long time, it's expensive. Or you may want a will if you have a spouse with some type of long-term disability, like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and then you and I have done a lot of planning with that spousal situation where we've put something called a supplemental needs trust in the body of that will. And then, of course, even though you have a will, you still got to coordinate those beneficiary designations.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of that in our office.
A lot of beneficiaries. And the one thing that I find really interesting is, even though you might be the healthy spouse, the community spouse, as a lot of people put it, and you say, well, why do I need to put a supplemental needs trust for my spouse who's in skilled nursing? A lot of times we see that you can predecease the person who is actually in there.
Yeah, we see that healthier spouse basically caregive themselves to an early grave.
Yeah.
And so what Robert's talking about, if you haven't gone through the Medicaid process, is when you're on Medicaid, a married couple gets to keep more assets, and then we want to plan for in case the healthy or the community spouse dies first. And then what can happen is if the healthy spouse dies first, he or she can set up a trust in their will, and the assets placed in those trusts are not going to disqualify their loved one who's in a nursing home. And then money in the trust can be used to do things like hire a care manager like Robert to monitor, because you see a lot of, like, if a healthy spouse dies, I bet then probably the main reviewer of the care dies too.
And that adage, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, is very, very true in healthcare these days, and we'll talk a lot about that in our next live stream.
You will talk about that.
I'll talk about that.
I will sit here and nod politely. So your estate planning style may be fancy. If you have out-of-state property. Because if you have that Malibu beach house, first of all,
invite us.
Why don't I know about it?
Yeah.
Second of all, you need to put that property in a revocable trust so that you're not going to be subject to that California probate system. You might want to have I'm starting to sound like, what's that comedian, Jeff Foxworthy?
Oh.
You might be a redneck.
Yeah. You might be a fancy
which we are. We are rednecks. We just clean up really good. If you have a special needs child, you may want to have a trust that's established now and immediately funded at your death, so that child doesn't have to wait to go through the probate process in order to get money. Mineral, oil, or gas interests, those always take a long time to sort out, and a revocable trust is a nice way to do it. And you want to make it easy on your friends and family. So if you are retired and you want to come to us and just wrap up your estate plans and make sure that if you become incapacitated or die, it's very easy for your family, especially if they live out of state, then I think you have a fancy style, and
Yeah.
you need a revocable trust.
And it helps everybody know where everything is. 'Cause,
Yes.
yeah, that's another thing that
Yes.
you're preparing it. You're gathering all your assets together,
Yes.
so that way people aren't trying to figure out
Yeah.
and going through all your paperwork.
That's right. They're not going through that trash bag. Or we're not, let me say, our office is not going through that trash bag of paperwork, which would never happen to my clients because we got you covered. And that being said, regardless if you use a will or a trust, please have an Excel spreadsheet or some type of way to show where your assets are, the beneficiary designations, and what your bills are. And so, Rob, anything else that I'm missing before we talk about building the perfect estate planning wardrobe? We talked about if you have to figure out are you a fancy person or are you a simple person? We talked about beneficiary designations.
The one thing we probably need to touch on just a little bit more is if you're one of those people, or if you have, say if you're a husband and wife and you have a trust and you have a disabled person or a disabled son or daughter, and there's no one else to take care of them, a corporate trustee could come in
Yes.
and
Yes.
manage that trust.
Yes.
And then if there is, say, another family member,
Yes.
they don't have to manage the trust. They could just be a trust
That's
protector.
right. Yes.
And be a family member and not be a trustee, right?
That's right. And so what trust protectors do is they can pick out that corporate fiduciary, they can fire the corporate fiduciary, they can help make distributions.
Mm-hmm.
In the perfect scenario, the trust protector and a corporate fiduciary work together to figure out how to make a good plan for housing and health care along with a care manager.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Robert, we forgot to tell you, everybody, this may be somebody's first time seeing you. They don't even know what we do. We forgot. We were so ready to go. I think what it was, I'm going to blame it on that Zoom call I had with the sufferers where I was so awkward. I have not been right since Saturday night. Well, I had the most awkward Zoom call with my favorite band in the whole world. So, if you're just tuning in now, I'm an attorney. My name is Christina Lusher. This is Robert Pierce.
I'm a care manager.
He's a care manager. We waited until this thing was over to tell you.
There's only 3 minutes left.
There's only 3 minutes
What's wrong with
left.
telling them now?
They can figure it out. Y'all are smart people.
Anyways, so building a wardrobe. What do you mean?
All the little steps that you need to have a well thought out plan, just like you would have a well thought out outfit.
Mm-hmm.
So figuring out, do you need a will or trust? Knowing where your assets are. Updating your beneficiary designations. Updating your financial information. Making sure if you use a trust that you retitle those assets that should go into a trust. And really you should go see an attorney for this. This is not a DIY project. You know, we do work with a lot of engineers. If you're out there watching and you're an engineer, we love you and you can come and see us and we know you'll read every word and we'll be happy to talk to you about it. But making sure that you get those documents drafted correctly, that you make sure that your wishes that are stated in the documents are done and
they all work together.
They all work together. And safely store your originals and have copies. I typically don't like originals to be in safety deposit boxes just because, you know, the bank changes names, they don't have the signature card, and now we have to get a court order, which is very expensive. I would just say just keep them at a safe, and then if you're in Houston, make it a big old safe that someone can't
high up.
That's high up, away from flooding in case you flood.
And have copies at
and have copies.
places.
That's right. And then to review your estate planning documents once a year. So, and then I think we just went on and on. We didn't even ask any of our questions. So should we ask? Should we do our Whataburger winners?
Yeah, from last week.
From last week. That's right. I don't. There may be just our family. Maybe my sister might be the only one watching tonight, but that's okay. Do you want to announce them?
So for our Whataburger
Hold on. Let me do
winners-
this. Let me do this different. Hold on. Let me fold it like they do at the.
Can I do the? I'm having trouble opening this envelope. So for last week, for sharing, right? For sharing.
Yes.
Our
yes.
It's Jose Luis Alvarez.
Yay, Jose!
Darla Tucker will be getting a Whataburger gift certificate.
Yes,
correct?
and I'm free for lunch next week. Okay, so a couple of other things. There's no attorney-client relationship until you pay us and sign a contract. Nothing here that we presented tonight can be considered to be legal advice. We're just here giving information to the community. You want to tell us how to book an appointment?
Sure. Give us a call at 713-529-5900. Myself or one of our awesome coworkers will be able to answer the phone, help you book an appointment. We're doing appointments by Zoom, so that way you can meet with us with a nice shirt on and pajama bottoms.
We wouldn't know anything about that.
No.
One of us is wearing flip-flops.
And then our next Facebook Live is on the 22nd.
At 8:30.
At 8:30, and then I'm going to be talking a lot this time.
Yes.
I'm going to be talking about placement. How do you find a good facility?
That's right.
How do you find the right level of facility?
That's right.
And making sure that we put our loved ones in a place that we trust, right?
That's right. That's right. And if you add a comment to enter into this week's challenge, all you have to do is add a comment. And we will be awarding a $25 Gap gift card, and we'll announce the winner on September 22nd. But the good thing about if you use the Gap, you can use it at Banana Republic, Athleta, Old Navy, and they're having some mega sales. And I want to give everybody in Facebook land a tip, because Gap and I were in a bidding war during the coronavirus. What you do is you make your selection and you put it in your cart, and then you let it sit there for 48 hours. And then the Gap will be like, do you need an extra 15% off? And I'll say, why, surely I do. Thank you, Gap. That's probably why they're going bankrupt right now.
And it's not a way to get you to spend money at all.
No, not a way. I was going to spend that money anyway. I just spent a lot less. So anything else? We talked about our water winners. Yeah. And also, if you have any ideas for additional topics you would like to hear, you can pick our brain. We'll be happy to present on almost anything that we practice at our office. If you need a cooking.
Yeah, be sure to like, share, comment.
Like, share. If you have a recipe you want to send us that we'll try out, I mean, I'm saying that we are wide open to do anything. So,
let's see.
We'll do that. Rob's going to read out our comment section.
Our sister says hi.
Yes.
Our mystery uncle is watching. Nora wants a recount. Jose Luis says yes. Kathy Byers says thank you for doing this. Of course,
we
Kathy.
love you, Kathy.
My taste smile that as Kirby apparently wants a burger right now. David wants burgers.
We had a turkey sandwich with pickled onion.
And Glenda says thanks for the information. Well,
is that Miss Flaw?
Yes.
Aw, Glenda. We need to get fashion tips from Glenda because she's gorgeous and just is the perfect dresser, and so is her daughter and her granddaughter too. So.
Well, should we say thanks?
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, yeah, no,
all right.
Thank you for having me. Am I the third special guest for third time in a row?
You are my third special guest. It's like that show, The Love Boat, where they had like the special guest. It's like the same special guest for like 3 seasons. And if y'all don't know what The Love Boat is, you're younger than me. Anyways, love y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.